ask you questions, is that it?
That's the story, yeah.
I have prepared a few, strangely unprepared, but something occurred to me. Surely, did someone consciously plan to show this segment on the day there's the feast of St. John of the Cross?
I must say, honestly, no. We wanted to show this because of New York. So it was one that had the most New York in it. And it just didn't occur to us that it would be on December 14th. Yeah, and of course it occurred to me, I think, maybe this morning. I had Mass over at St. Patrick's. I preached, and I said a few things about John of the Cross, and I thought, well, how appropriate that we're highlighting that tonight.
I fell into instant contemplation there for a moment. Now, I understand, and I really don't know where I heard it, that at least one of the impulses that you have in undertaking this incredibly massive massive project, was motivated or prompted or somehow, whatever the word is, by the situation around the time of the scandal of the abuse of minors in the church.
Yeah,
that dominated the daily news.
Yeah.
And you were moved to respond to this. Before we examine how you responded, let me ask you, do you think that negative view of the church that was being presented, negative being too weak a word, was that motivated by the traditional, maybe non-malicious, but traditional difficulty of Catholicism in the United States because of its Protestant origins, or also the shock that many Catholics who love the church had when they saw that such evil could be hiding behind such beauty, truth, and goodness?
Yeah, it's a searching question you're asking and a hard one to answer. I've been ordained now for 25 years, and the sex abuse scandal has brooded like a great cloud over most of my priesthood. The first wave happened in the early 1990s, and so I was ordained 5 years at the time. And it's the worst tragedy in American Catholic Church history. If you'd asked me, 20 years ago, what's the worst period in American Catholic Church history, I would have said the 19th century, when they were burning down convents and there were political parties organized against the church. But clearly this is worse than that time. Not only has it produced thousands of innocent victims, but it's undermined the work of the church in every way. I mean, so I'm given the task by Cardinal George to evangelize the culture. Well, it's undermined in so many ways. So I thoroughly get it and thoroughly subscribe to the view that the church has to address this massive tragedy. I utterly subscribe to that. At the same time, I'd say this, I began to react against the tendency to reduce Catholicism to the sex abuse scandal. 2,000 years of art and architecture and poetry and the saints and liturgy and the Eucharist and lives transformed and the great witness of Jesus, the power of redemption, I mean, all of it being occluded to some degree or eclipsed by it. And that did bother me. And I wanted this series to bring forth, to remind people of that hugely important transformative spiritual tradition. So to that degree, I say, yeah, it was motivated by what I saw as a certain reductionism that had happened both in the public presentation of Catholicism and in people's imaginations. Because I wanted people to remember or to realize, perhaps for the first time, what a rich spiritual tradition this is. I actually do address the scandal in episode 6 on the church, where I talk about the holiness of the church.
Good, yeah, I haven't seen that. In the ones that I have seen, I am impressed that you deal with that with such a great joy and like the joy, the ecstasy, the reality of holiness in the church is infinitely greater than any scandal. Yeah. It takes a long time to learn, and I saw it in your video. Congratulations, very good. Now, still on that, not now on the sexual abuse scandal itself. You just mentioned the question of holiness. Catholic Church has always, and I find in talking with people who are not Catholics, this great difficulty in understanding this. Catholic Church has always felt that the holiness of the Church is not destroyed or removed by the sins of its members. Many Catholics, and non-Catholics especially, find it very difficult to understand. How do you deal with this concern?
Yeah, and you're right. It's a huge problem for a lot of people, and I confront it almost every day. I have a ministry on the internet. I do little commentaries on YouTube, and on movies and books and music and popular culture, high culture, and I put these things out about once a week, and they get huge amounts of commentary. I didn't realize you could comment on YouTube videos. I discovered you could pretty quickly. Because what I love about that is it gets me way outside the church. It's the people who would never darken the door of the church, but they do engage me on YouTube. And I found that many of the people in the secular society are very well versed in the church's corruption. They know chapter and verse of all the things that people have done, bad things in the name of God. And so I deal with that all the time. And I mean, a fundamental answer is always Paul's, right? That we hold the treasure in earthen vessels. So Paul knew that in the first century. The treasure is Christ and Christ's life and Christ's grace. That's the treasure. The church is holy because Christ is holy, and the church is the bearer of Christ's mystery. But we hold the treasure in earthen vessels. And what I always tell people on YouTube is, human beings are a bad lot. We just are. And the church has a doctrine to describe that, namely original sin. I mean, we expect people to go bad. We're not really surprised when people go bad. So will lots of people do bad things in the name of God? Sure. And our very doctrine predisposes us to expect that, But it doesn't touch in itself the holiness of Christ, which the church bears with all of its limitations and flaws and corruptions. And so you look to the saints, you look to the sacraments, you look to the Eucharist, you look to the Mass, you look to the witness of holy people and say, well, that's the church's holiness, which is not corrupted by the bad behavior of religious people. One thing I say to my interlocutors on YouTube is, a lot of Americans have done terrible things in the name of American purposes. Does that mean that American values are ipso facto bad? Well, no, the American values remain legitimate, even when they're very problematically born into the world. Something similar with the church, So it's an awkward issue. I agree with you. It's tricky to get, but I think that Paul's distinction from the first century is still the most important one.
Do you think that is also a result of one of the greatest problems we face and should be dealt with, and I'm sure will in the new evangelization, and that is the reduction of the Catholic faith to moralism? The Church really has a source precisely of values, but values that are not grounded on a fact, on an event, on a reality, ultimately of a person.
No, quite right. That's always a danger, I think, in contemporary views of religion, that we see it, as you say, simply as a moral enterprise, a moralizing enterprise. At the heart of religion is always grace, it seems to me, the grace of God's gift, and then our response to that grace in love and faith. Now, a moral life will flow from that. I mean, because of that response to grace, you change your life and behave in different ways. But the heart of it, and that's why I think the spirituality business belongs at the heart of it, is that we recognize God giving us his life in gracious love, and then we're transfigured by that grace. That's the heart of religion. It's to use your language, that hunger for the infinite. But better, the infinite is hungry for us. The infinite has reached out to us, and now we respond. That's the heart of it. That's the essence of religion. Morality follows from that. And one of the dangers is you try to do morality apart from grace, apart from spirituality, and then you get what the Archbishop was talking about, a certain moralizing or puritanical naysaying. That's the moral life divorced from the spiritual life. And that's a major problem, I think, today.
I was also, well, it wasn't out yet, I don't know how much you anticipated or what you could. The new translations of the liturgy are precisely crucial in finding this moralism. I remember, I think it's the very first Sunday of Easter, after the Easter week, the prayer up until now in English asks for God's help. But in Spanish, which is of course God's own inner language, Sign of the Cross, in Spanish and in many other translations, you ask for grace, the grace to do that. One of them is help us to be good, it says the other one, give us the grace to be good.
No, absolutely right. I mean, gratia prima, the grace comes first, I think is the great biblical idea. Compare biblical figures to, let's say, Aristotle or Cicero, who believed in some forms of perfectibility. I mean, if you just get your moral life ordered properly, you know what your ends are, you know the habits you need to inculcate to achieve those ends, you can become a happy person in Aristotle's view or Plato's view. Well, the Bible never believes that. The Bible begins with a certain helplessness and that we need to receive the grace of God. That's why biblical figures are always placed in the passive voice. They don't stand like Aristotle, sort of determining their lives. Or I would say like a secular monarch. That we tend to think of life that way. So I have a project and plan and I set out to achieve certain things. That's just not biblical at all. Biblical people are deeply aware of how incapable they are. And they're nevertheless addressed by God. And the usual response is, Lord, I'm not worthy. Lord, go away. Don't talk to me. But that's how God does it. He breaks into our lives in all their weakness and their compromised quality. And he graces us, he gives us his life. And that's the starting point. If you don't have that as a starting point, religion will always go bad, it seems to me. If grace is bracketed, religion turns into something else, something it shouldn't be, like moralizing. So I think that's indispensably important, right?
Even, even the incarnation itself, the Sunday, the first purpose of Advent, for example, it used to say, when he came to us or something as a man. Yeah. But that's not what the Latin said. Yeah. Now it says what the Latin says. When he came in the humility of the flesh. Yeah. It's a more intimate thing. The flesh he has is our humble flesh. Yeah. It's not just in popping up like, hey, I'm here to help you. Good stuff.
I think you're really right about the poetry of the New Translation bears an awful lot of theology. In the very beauty and lyricism of that language, you see theology. We had a tendency to sort of flatten out the language and make it more, maybe understandable, but it became more pedestrian. And we lost a good deal of that theological richness. So I think that's quite right.
When concerning this, there is no question there are so many people in the church who feel that they are under persecution. There is something particularly malicious in the air that seeks to not destroy but neutralize the Catholic Church in many ways. And constantly hear about the problems in the church and all that. In the middle of all this now is this Holy Father. And his response to this is not really an apologetics, but a call to conversion. To conversion, all of us. Tell me how you deal with that in the series.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Jesus' first words, really, in Mark's Gospel, in the inaugural address, his opening speech, is repent. But that's the way we translate the term. It's metanoite in the Greek, which means literally go beyond the mind you have. Nous, mind, meta, beyond. Metanoite means change your mind. Change your way of thinking. Change your attitude. Change your perspective. And that's a big part of it, is God's grace is now rushing into the world in Christ. Change your mind so you can see it. Change your mind so you can respond to it. Change your mind so stop playing games of self-justification and so on. So I think that's key. That's conversion, turning around, changing attitude, changing vision, changing perspective. That's why I emphasize the saints in this episode. Or in this whole series. I've got a particular episode on 4 women saints. But throughout the 10 parts, and you saw it here with Merton, I try to find people that embody this. People who were changed by the inrushing of grace. Or the image I like to use is the image of Jesus getting into St. Peter's boat. You know, in the Gospels, when, without being asked, without being invited, Jesus simply gets into Peter's boat. And to get into someone's boat, if you're a Galilean fisherman, that was pretty invasive. You know, it's to get into your livelihood. That's everything. Like someone just gets into my car and starts barking orders at me. So here's Jesus gets into Peter's boat and starts telling him what to do. Or Zacchaeus, you know, the great story of Zacchaeus, this day I'm coming to your house. I'm moving in. Well, that's the invasion of grace. And the beauty is that Peter and Zacchaeus cooperate with that grace. See, that's good Catholic language. Grace comes first, but then, yeah, you cooperate with it. You change your mind, change your attitude, change your perspective, and now you let that grace surge through you to become a gift for the world. That's the spiritual life, I mean, in a nutshell, is God gives his life to me. I retain that life only in the measure that I give it away. Because that's what God is. God is gift. If I try to hang on to it, then I'll lose it. There's the prodigal son, and story after story in the Bible. So I tell that in episode 2. You know, that's what the spiritual life is about, is allowing God's grace to flow through us so it can flow into the world. That's conversion, you know, and I think that's what the whole project is about.
It's true. I mean, it fits perfectly the call to the new evangelization, to the year of faith, and all of that.
Yeah.
But don't you think that first, those who are going to present this to the various possibilities that the Archbishop mentioned, I mean, the thing stands on its own because you're there all the time doing the teaching. But we need a preparation of the people who are going to be the presenters or something like that. Have you thought of anything like this? Or you just give it to someone and say, here?
Yeah, but we have a whole study program that goes with this.
Plug that down, please.
I'll plug it, yeah, thank you. I didn't write it. It was written by a wonderful writer named Carl Olson. And Carl got all the scripts for our series, and he put together a study program which takes each point and deepens it. And then whenever I reference a work of art, he'll give you all the background and all the details of it. And it's designed to take people through an RCIA program. So that's when people are coming into the church as adults. So you could do it in a 20-week program. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. I think that can be used now to help people take in the series. I should say real quick, as it struck me as I was watching, this is a highly edited version. We wanted to bring it down in time, so it seemed a little bit herky-jerky. We were taking large sections out of this. So I think all the episodes really flow pretty smoothly and logically. This one, the missing parts, I think, made a difference in some of the narrative flow. But the study guide really helps you, I think, appropriate what I've got going on.
Well, I think that what one saw was excellent anyway, because of the pedagogy of it. I mean, you obtain grace by seeing what it has done, by being attracted by seeing what it has done in someone else.
Yes.
And what you've done with Thomas Merton, and even John of the Cross.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to identify with him. But to be here in New York, identify with Thomas Merton, Dorothy Day, people. Yeah. You see how grace changed their lives. You mentioned Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus is in the house saying absolutely nothing, and suddenly he's going to give up all that he has stolen and everything. There's a morality.
Yeah.
Based on the experience.
But based on grace.
Based on grace.
Yeah. No, quite right. That's my inspiration throughout the series is I wanted to begin this one with Merton because, as I say there, standing in Times Square, that was about 3 years ago, we filmed that, and you talk about spirituality and mysticism, and it can seem so arcane or so alien. But here's someone very close to our time whose life was totally transfigured by grace and by a book that he bought on Fifth Avenue at the Scribner's bookstore. So I just like that it roots the thing in our own time. But then to go back, who were his teachers? And the great teacher was Juan de la Cruz, you know, to look then at his life. What we left out, I mean, it's a sort of high point of the John of the Cross section. But when he falls so radically in love with God, he uses erotic language to describe the union with Christ. And that's what a lot of the mystics do. And the root of that, go back to the Song of Songs in the Bible, but it's that falling so radically in love with God that it's like this erotically charged relationship. And that's where John of the Cross's relationship arrives, you know. And so Merton's great mystical vision that I closed the episode with, you know, can't someone tell them they're all shining like the sun? That's someone now that's been so transfigured by grace that he can see the deepest truth, and he wants everyone to see it. So yeah, I wanted that to come through, that these are real people who fell in love with God and were utterly transformed by the dynamic of it.
And then whose transformation touches you in such a way that you might not even know why, but there is an attraction. Grace, after all, is a force of attraction. And that, I think I could see that very well. I can imagine in the rest of the show. Is it really true that the Archbishop was putting us on? Is it really that the Archbishop do know now and then? That in the Amazon, your book follows Lady Gaga?
Yeah, actually, it's actually Justin Bieber. We're, I think, number 4 in documentaries now, just after Justin Bieber. I'm ahead of Taylor Swift, though. And,
does it say people who bought this also bought?
Yeah, yeah.